Hello, I'm Ted Cabbage, and welcome to My Perfect Read, brought to you by your Fairfax County Public Library. Have you ever walked into a branch and thought, I'd love to pick out a new book, but there are so many, I don't even know where to start? Well, we're here and happy to help. My Perfect Read is our new personalized online service where you can meet our library staff and also check out their recommendations for books and authors that they love and think you'll enjoy too. This summer, we'd like to invite you to unplug from your gadgets and devices for a little while. And what better way to do that than with a good book? Joining me today to share some of their current favorites are Jill Burgard from Martha Washington Library and Rob Bartholomew from Chantilly Regional Library. Welcome. Jill, we'll start with you. Can you share with us one of the titles you brought with you today?
Yes, I'd love to. This one is called Mistress of the Art of Death. It's by Ariana Franklin. And it is a mystery that's set in medieval times. Okay. It's set in 12th century Cambridge, and it opens with some fairly grisly murders. Some children are murdered, and everybody is justifiably scared and horrified. But sadly, the citizens of Cambridge are so panicked they lash out at their Jewish neighbors. So the king takes the Jews under his protection, and he wants to get down to the bottom of what's going on, also because he depends on their revenues from the taxes that they pay. Okay. So he applies to his cousin, who is the king of Sicily, and he asks him to send from his famous medical school a master of the art of death to come and solve these mysteries and figure out what's happened with these children. Well, it turns out that in Salerno, at the medical school in the 12th century, women were admitted to become doctors. And the perfect person for this job is a woman named Adelia, who is both an excellent anatomist, but also she is well versed in detection. And she must travel up to Cambridge, but it's a dangerous trip. And in England at the time, women could not practice medicine. And so she has her Muslim companion, and they have to pretend that he's the doctor and that she's his assistant. And it's very exciting. It's a gripping mystery.
Yeah, and a lot of historical detail in there. It sounds
Great
really
historical detail.
well researched and very deep.
Yes, you'll definitely learn a lot if you read this, and there's even a little touch of romance.
Oh, all right. Thank you so much. Rob, what's on your list for us to check out?
This is by Marcus Sacchi. It's called Brilliance. It's the first in the Brilliance trilogy. Since 1980, about 1% of the population has been born with special abilities. Abilities like being able to read minds, checking out the stock market patterns to amass like billions in the fortune, or turning invisible when someone's not looking at you. Nick Cooper is a federal agent, and he also has special abilities that help him with tracking down terrorists. And he's been given the mission to track down someone who's trying to create a civil war between the people with abilities versus those that do not have them. Kind of remind me a lot of the superhero stories that are going on right now, and just almost like a more realistic take on it.
Very, very X-Men-like. That's what I think of right away. Oh, cool. That probably appeals to the superhero fans out there, I'm sure.
Should.
Very nice. Thank you. Jill, what else have you brought with you today?
All right, I brought, this one is one of my favorite books I've read all year. It's called All Systems Red by Martha Wells. It's the first book in a series called the Murderbot Diaries.
Murderbot Diaries?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
And this one had me at the first paragraph, so I'd like to share that with you, if I may.
Yes, please.
These books are told from the point of view of a security unit, which is part robot, part human. And this one refers to itself as Murderbot.
Okay.
I could have become a mass murderer after I hacked my governor module, but then I realized I could access the combined feed of entertainment channels carried on the company's satellites. It had been well over 35,000 hours or so since then, with still not much murdering, but probably, I don't know, a little under 35,000 hours of movies, serials, books, plays, and music consumed. As a heartless killing machine, I was a terrible failure. So Murderbot is assigned to an expeditionary team exploring planets, and something really horrible happens when they're out doing their exploring, and somebody almost dies, and it manages to save them. And then it discovers that some very key information is missing from their files, which led to this accident. So the team wonders if maybe another company's team has this information, and when they try to contact them, everything is dead. All the channels are dead, so they need to go figure out what's going on. So it's
Wow.
a little funny, very exciting, definitely intriguing.
Kind of a mystery
Told
element.
from the point of view, yes, of of the murder bot.
And not too long either.
And it's a nice slim one.
Nice quick
Yes,
read.
definitely. And there's
Unplugging
more.
quickly.
I just finished the second one. It was even better.
Oh my gosh.
Highly recommend it.
That's great. Thank you. That sounds really cool. Okay. Rob, what else have you brought for us?
This is The Cut by George Pelecanos, and George Pelecanos is probably best known for his work on The Wire, and he writes a lot about the local DC metro area, and I always enjoy reading books like that. This book in particular is about a former Iraq war vet who was returned back to DC and has found a job as a special investigator for an attorney, and he kind of specializes in retrieving stolen property for a 40% cut.
Hence the title.
So at this juncture, crime boss has kind of asked him to look into see why is he losing money? Is somebody stealing from him? And as he looks into it, he realizes that there's a lot of immoral people out there and violent people, and come threatening him, and they come threatening his family, and he's wondering, is it really worth doing this job? It's the first, I believe there's a couple others with this same character, Spiro Lucas. I think there's about 2 others. But
His books are pretty exciting, right? Pretty,
very
pretty
gritty. I
well-paced.
enjoy kind of like
yeah.
a hard-boiled kind of a detective mystery, and this certainly fits that bill.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Jill, what have you brought us? What's next?
I have another detective mystery. This one is called Midnight Riot. It's by Ben Aronovich. It's also, I believe, in the UK known as The Rivers of London, and that's the name of this series. They've re-released all the covers. I prefer this one.
Why do you prefer that one?
I just think it's more engaging. It gives a
Yeah.
better idea. It always has the map of London. And we know that London is a magical city, and it's literally a magical city in these books. And it features a young man named Peter Grant. And as this book opens up, this first book, he is completing his second year of probationary service as a beat cop, which they have to do in London in the police. They do 2 years, and then they get their assignments. And he's done this with his friend Leslie, who's gone through the school with him, and they're very excited to find out what their assignment will be. Well, the night before that happens, there is a murder in Covent Garden, and someone is decapitated, and the murder team comes to investigate, and then it falls on Peter and Leslie and some other beat cops to guard the crime scene until morning so that they can come back and make sure they haven't missed anything. And it's a cold night, it's very boring, and eventually Leslie goes to get some coffee, and while she's gone, Peter sees somebody under the portico, and he goes over to find out what they're doing. And it's a man, and he says he saw the whole murder. And Peter says, well, then you'd better come and testify at the police station. And he says, well, that would be difficult because I'm dead.
What?
Right. And Peter says, okay, fine, and could you prove that? And the man steps out into the light, and he is translucent.
Whoa.
And so, yeah. And so it turns out that Peter comes to the attention of Chief Inspector Thomas Nightingale, who is the one-man department that investigates the uncanny. And this one is very uncanny.
Sounds like it.
Yes, and it's the first book in a wonderful series, and it's still being written, so I'm looking forward to the next one.
Isn't it great when you discover a series you love and then there are like 4 or 5 or more books to read, and it's just
true.
the best, right? It's
and you
such
love
a
the
nice
characters, and it's my favorite kind of mystery where their lives continue and grow, and there's sort of an overarching mystery, and then there's individual ones, kind of like the X-Files, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's very good. I like
Oh,
it.
great. Thank you. All right. Rob, can you share another title with us?
Sure, this is by Don Winslow, The Winter of Frankie Machine. He's another great crime writer that I enjoy. He reminds me a lot of Elmore Leonard. In this case, Frank Marciano is known as a man around California, a businessman, a doting father. But what most people don't realize is that he's a former hitman known as Frankie the Machine.
All right.
As he's going about his daily life, turns out that someone makes an attempt on his life, somebody from his former mob contacts, and as he tries to figure out who is behind it, he has to worry about evading the police, waiting for the hitman to come again, as well as trying to raise his daughter and protect her. And he's got Don Winslow has several books that have been optioned in the movies, and I believe this one too as well.
Oh, wow. That sounds good.
That sounds like a good movie, too.
Yeah, it does, right? The family stuff as well. It's not just, yeah, it sounds really great. Thank you. Jill, can you share another book with us?
All right, of course. This
All
one
right.
is an oldie but a goodie, and I brought it because there's a recent one that just came out. This is by Ruth Reichel, and it's
yes.
called Tender at the Bone. And Ruth Reichel is, she was the editor of Gourmet Magazine, and she also was the restaurant critic for the New York Times. And this is the very first one of her memoirs, and it starts out when she's a child, and it talks about how food and the love of food and the people who love food have sort of shaped her life. And it includes some really amazing recipes. And to this day, the fudgy brownie recipe in here is like our family brownie recipe that I've been making for years. Yeah. And it starts with her childhood. She had a very unusual relationship with food because her mother couldn't really taste very well. And she would have these big family parties, and when the food had gone off a little bit, she couldn't tell. And so little Ruthie would run around trying to save like her favorite uncle from eating the potato salad or whatever. And then it goes on as she grows up, and it's just really well written, really interesting, quirky people. It's true, so it's fun because it's a memoir, and then each book in the series just continues her life. So there's where she's going to restaurants as a restaurant critic, and she has to wear disguises because all of the restaurants in New York have her picture up in the kitchen.
Oh no.
So people can see if she comes in and things like that. So it's really
she goes from that childhood to becoming an expert on food, which is really interesting.
It is,
Yeah.
it is. And they all
Interesting journey.
have great recipes too. I recommend them too.
Cool. All right, I think we can do one more book here, Rob. If you brought another one, yay.
This is African Samurai. It is a biography of a man known as Yasuke. As a small child, he was kidnapped from Northeast Africa, and he wound up in servitude to the Jesuit priesthood. Eventually, he becomes a servant and bodyguard to the head of the Jesuits in Asia. He traveled through India and China as well, learning languages. And when he shows up in Japan, he's kind of an astonishing figure. He's tall, he's muscular, he's bald, and especially dark-skinned, and the Japanese have never seen anything like that before. They try and scrub his skin to see if it will come off, and it doesn't.
Oh my gosh.
And eventually he winds up in servitude to Lord Nobunaga. He's in charge, he's probably the head of the most powerful family in Japan at this time. And he becomes a samurai. He's taught samurai tactics and ways, and starts making a rise in Japanese society. And not much is known about him, and this is one of the first books that have actually gone into detail about his presence in life in Japan.
That's really interesting. I want to read that.
Cool. Me too.
Wow, thank you. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us on this edition of My Perfect Read. If you're interested in learning more about our books, programs, and resources for everyone, make sure to visit your nearest Fairfax County Public Library or check out My Perfect Read online at research.fairfaxcounty.gov/myperfectread. See you next time.